Join Tiki Man and the Viking at the Tulsa Lit Fest Book Fair on April 26th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. 1 week later, we will be where?
At OWFI from April 30th to May 2nd in Oklahoma City. Stay tuned for upcoming interviews from some of the presenters. And as always, read a book. And welcome to Tiki Man and the Viking podcast. He is Tiki Man.
I am H.B. Burlow, the historical crime fiction author of two series, the Ark City Confidential Chronicles and the Wichita Chronicles. He, of course, is the Viking.
I am William Bryan Johnson, author of Hell to Pay, The Dark Cry of Aristid, and Middle-Aged Man in a Trash Can.
And we are continuing our conversations with speakers at this year's OWFI conference. That's going to be April 30th to May 2nd. Today, we get a chance to revisit with our buddy, Merle Davenport. In 2000, Merle Davenport began teaching inside state prisons, where he spent more than 2 decades helping incarcerated adults earn their GED while studying criminal behavior and recidivism. His graduate work focused on understanding criminal thinking patterns and how education can help interrupt cycles that lead back to prison. Drawing on more than 25 years of firsthand experience in correctional education, Merle brings a unique perspective to storytelling. His nonfiction book, Echoes of the Criminal Mind, A Writer's Guide to Crafting Authentic Villains, explores how real criminal thought processes can help writers create deeper and more believable antagonists. Today, he also serves as president of the Tulsa Night Riders. Welcome, Merle Davenport.
Thank
How
you.
you doing, Merle?
Hey, I'm doing good.
Let's see. Last time we talked to you, I think it was episode 46, and
Good
you were getting
Lordy.
ready to have the book come out. How's the book doing for you?
The book is doing well, steady sales. I've gotten a lot of really, really good feedback.
Good.
Several authors have said, I used your book to write my next one, and boy, did it help. And so I'm really excited about that because that was the whole goal, was to help out authors make their books come alive in ways we didn't.
I just remember your presentation last year, and that caught us, both of us, and it's amazing because I write the historical crime fiction, Brian writes horror and fantasy, and both of us at the end of the session were like looking at each other like, yeah, we can both gain from that. How is that possible that writers of several genres can get something out of this book that's about the quote-unquote criminal mind?
Well, the whole idea is every story has to have a protagonist and an antagonist. You know, what does the antagonist look like? If the antagonist is a wimpy dude, then you don't need anything but a wimpy hero. And so the more complex and the more developed your villain is, the more challenges that it presents for your hero, and the more heroic your hero becomes. And so it doesn't matter what genre you're talking about. My wife and I just released will release next month, our first historical romance. And I'm even using some of the principles from my book to create a villain in there. So it
can be
works
done
in just about every genre.
And I think some of the things that you said during that presentation from OWFI, I used on several characters. Not everybody's a villain, but I have a couple guys that were bad actors in the past, but they're helping the protagonist. But yet there is a very dark side to both of those guys.
Yeah, well, you know, the rogue hero is a unique character. He's your James Bond. He's the one that lives outside the law. The law doesn't really apply to him, and yet he is singularly focused on fulfilling his mission, which is a positive mission and helps the country, the queen, whatever, and all of mankind. But he's kind of unique because he's a villain himself in many, many ways. Uh,
There's an interesting system of ethics that kind of works into the gray hero.
Yeah, that's
And I
exactly it.
mean, going back to spaghetti westerns, and I have a fondness right now for space westerns. I mean, The Mandalorian, Firefly, those type of shows, Farscape, Once Upon a Time, to where you have dark, broken heroes, but yet they are working towards a common goal, and they're not always nice to each other.
yeah, the moral compass kind of spins a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, and I've always been drawn to a lot of films from the 60s and 70s with the anti-hero, where you're like, if as when I was younger, I was like, oh, that guy's cool. As I got older, you're like, wait a minute, he's not doing the right thing, but it's coming out right. So how are we rooting for them? I think once you develop as a writer, you start to see there may be more of a crossover between the protagonist and the antagonist than you initially thought.
Well, I think there's was a movement away from the King Arthur and chivalry and all of that to a realization that uh, we morally are kind of mixed. There's nobody that's truly good, and there's nobody that's truly evil, but we're somewhere in between. And uh, and you saw this movement, especially in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, towards the heroes and the anti-heroes being or and the villains being a little bit of a mixture of that. But if you know what the villain looks like, if he's bad, 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 then you can kind of back off of that. And that's one of the things that I do in my book is I allow for I have some uh, checklists in the back for each of the 10 criminal traits,
I
and you
remember
can
those. Yeah.
adjust where you want your villain to be. Now, maybe he's really bad in this particular area, but he's kind of good in this area, and so you can mix them that way, and make custom make your villain so that it's fits your book better than here's a guy who cut up his wife and put her in the freezer, and that's all there is to him. There's no other personality to him at all. And in reality, he might be.
Before this book came out, did you find that most writers that you spoke with and dealt with were focused more on the protagonist than the antagonist, or were they just having trouble with the antagonist?
What I found was that most writers don't spend a lot of time hanging out in prison. And so they had no real idea what criminals really were like. And
Okay.
that was just kind of a disconnect. Um, and that's what my publisher kind of talked to me about. Is this, our writers don't, they spend time at their keyboards and talking to imaginary people. They don't spend a lot of time hanging out in the jails.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Wow.
they just don't have that connection. At the same time, um, I think that one of the most common complaints of publishers is about their writers is that they have flat um, villains. Think of the big bad wolf. What is there to the big bad wolf other than he's big and bad?
Mm-hmm. A little bit
Nothing.
of cunning, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Teeth
There's,
and
I
bad
mean,
breath.
yeah, he tries to blow the house down, or he dresses up like grandma.
Right.
Uh, that's about it. And other than that, he's hungry. He wants to eat little girl. He wants to eat little pigs. Uh, but other than that, there is nothing to him. And what we've got to do is we've got to get him to the place where um, here's another way of thinking about it. When we first saw Darth Vader in Star Wars, uh, by the third movie, he said, "You don't know the power of the dark side." And so, what he was telling us was that he started out going towards the dark side, and then the dark side owned him so
Good.
much
Yep. Yep.
that he couldn't get out of it. And he finally was redeemed. And it in some ways it reminds me of a person who heads down this trail thinking that they're in charge, and all of a sudden they find themselves just caught up in this web of darkness and uh, singular thoughts that lead them towards more criminal activity, uh, and it's hard to come out of that, and it's hard to move out of that. It's for some, it's worse than trying to get off of drugs, but
Mm,
it really
interesting. Yeah.
is kind of that kind of uh, pull, so that Darth Vader, even though he was one of the strongest uh, users of the dark forces, was owned by the dark forces itself until he became redeemed at the end of the third movie. And so it's really kind of, that shows a more complex villain character. And I find it fascinating that more people want to dress up as Darth Vader at Halloween than want to dress up as Luke Skywalker.
But
Fair enough.
but to remember seeing him emerge when I was 7 years old in that theater and going, "Oh my God, that's the
Oh yeah.
scariest man I've ever seen." White background, white soldiers, black 7-foot figure coming out, just
And the
looked evil.
gloves, the way they pointed, not in a poking you in the chest type, but just pointing at you like that finger is going to hurt you.
Mhm,
You know.
Yeah. And James Earl Jones' voice.
Right,
mhm.
of course. So, I mean, basically, you're talking from the prison experience. You're talking about transitioning um, the antagonist from an archetype. You know, the big bad wolf is an archetype of evil,
Right.
something that's against you. You're coloring it with all the human psychological aspects, and that's what you're advocating for people who read the book. Hey, color your villains, make them more broad, make them more elaborate.
Yeah, like one of the villains in my romance book comes across as a real nice hero type of guy, but under the surface he is not. And
Yeah,
it reminds you of the old saying that goes, "All that glitters is not gold."
right.
And that's his villain persona. All that glitters. I mean, he's putting up a real nice con artist uh surface, but underneath he's rotten to the core.
Got that dark underbelly. Now, you had said that you have a historical romance coming out. What time frame is this in?
Well, this is 1830, and it's based actually on my great great grandfather, who was a stable hand in England
Hmm.
at that time, and married an aristocrat. And we don't know what her real name was because she lost her title,
Yeah.
because she married the commoner.
Mm.
And I said, that sounds like a great story. Now, the rest of the story has no relationship to my great great grandfather
Okay.
whatsoever.
Okay. So you can trace yourself back to royalty at some point.
Um, Actually, we can, but we've traced ourselves back to 1086.
Oh my goodness.
And
Okay.
I
So
think it's interesting also to go back and talk about, you did talk about prison and knowing prisoners. Was it 36 years you worked in the prison system as in education?
Well, it's 26 right now.
26.
okay,
Okay.
27.
This year will be 26. And but you've got to understand that inside the prison are all levels of criminal activity. You've got some that
Yeah.
are still caught up in I want to be the biggest, baddest man on the
Yeah.
street. Why they want to do
Wow.
that inside the prison walls, I don't know. But and then you've got others that have come to a crossroads in their life, and they've decided to take a different direction, and they're on the way out of the criminal thinking. So we get to see all aspects of this. And that's one of the cool parts of the book, is if you want your villain to kind of get better and become less villainy, you can adjust where he is on
Mhm.
the charts. And And so his
Wow.
thinking has to change.
And you
And
had
once you start changing his thinking, you change his behavior.
10 different aspects of it, right?
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, and you can change essentially the levels of that. I also remember you talking one time about recidivism.
Recidivism.
None of us are going to say that right.
Recidivism.
Thank you, sir. What was the leading cause of that you were talking about? Was it the fact that they wouldn't take the blame for what they had done?
Well, that was one of the elements of it. You know, if you're not to blame, then what you did wasn't wrong.
Mhm.
And so they go back and
There you
do it
go. Right.
again. But the leading cause, believe it or not, is drugs and alcohol.
Okay.
Uh,
Still. Right.
because I ask the guys every month when I have a reentry class, what percentage of the guys on the yard, and we have 1,000 guys on our yard,
Wow.
uh, committed their crime while they were drunk or high, and it almost always comes about 90 to 95%.
Jeez
Wow.
Louise. Wow.
And what are you
And
seeing? What's the main thing that's causing that? What is it? Alcohol? Is
well,
it a certain drug?
no, it's all over the map.
Okay.
Uh, Alcohol happens to be one of the big ones.
Mhm.
But basically, you're talking about drugs and alcohol alter behavior,
Mhm.
and you do stupid when you're drunk or high, and when they're doing stupid, they get caught. Um, it just happens. But now you take that criminal thinking and you add that in layers onto the using drugs or alcohol, and then it just becomes compounded. And so, for
Right.
example, there's a lot of researchers that say that the alcohol really has a tendency to bring out parts of your personality that uh, want to be there but aren't there when you're sober.
Hmm.
And so, if you're really a mean person underneath, but you've kind of kept that tap down when you're sober, when you're drunk, it comes out, that type of thing.
Gotcha.
So, but the drugs, I mean, you're talking about we have drugs that will pick you up, that will slow you down, calm you down, that will make you feel like Superman, that will do a wide variety of things. And you'd be amazed at how many guys will literally take drugs in order to take off some of their nervousness before they go out and commit a crime.
Wow.
Which is a useful piece of information if you are writing a piece of crime fiction.
There you go.
You know. That's I
Yeah,
just recall. I was just remembering. What is it? Gary Oldman's character, the corrupt cop Stansfield from Leon the Professional, always had this little case, and he took pills. And it's obviously he was a DEA a cop, but he was corrupt. But that kind of brings that comment to mind about how he would, before he would commit some act of violence. I don't know what it was that he was taking. They never defined it, but that element was there. And that's one of the rare times that I've actually seen something other than Scarface, where they're all snorting coke. But I mean, it's an interesting aspect to add to a crime piece or a horror piece like Brian would write, that somebody was doing something before they went out and committed that act.
yeah. And unfortunately, back in the 1800s, you had a very famous author that had his hero smoking opium in order
Oh.
to solve crimes.
Would that happen to be Sir Arthur Conan Doyle?
It would, yeah, because Sherlock Holmes, that's what he did. He played the violin and smoked opium.
Mm-hmm.
Also took that little morphine too, as I recall. He was all over the map. Brilliant
Yeah,
guy, but yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Now, okay, so let's talk about that for a second. Here we have a protagonist, brilliant person, and it's a parallel. They're taking drugs in order to what? To
Solve
become
the crime.
smarter, solve the crime. So how does that balance out with the criminal who's taking the drugs to allow himself to commit the crime? Is there an equation of some sort?
I wish I knew. That's I'm not an expert in drugs, but you know, having never taken any of my myself, I just don't. but it's one of those that it puts you in an altered state. And apparently Doyle thought that smoking the opium would put Sherlock Holmes in a brilliant altered state in order to
Mm.
crimes.
Well, why don't you tell us about the sessions you're going to be doing at this year's OWFI?
Well, I'm really excited about this. We're going to be, I'll be speaking at the Friday luncheon,
Okay.
and we're going to be I'll have some fairly flat or anemic villains on the tables for people to pick up and look at, and the 10 criminal thinking errors, um, and we got to fix those villains and make them more well-rounded,
Oh, good.
and basically fix a flat is what the name of it is, and it's really about fixing a flat character and
Excellent.
making it more
Okay.
well-rounded. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what those characteristics are, those 10 traits are, but we're also going to use them on actual villains and try to make those villains, flesh them out, and so they're not just dry
Good.
bones,
Good.
flesh them out into real people.
That should be pretty good.
And then you said your next book is coming out when?
It will be out there in time for OWFI.
Oh,
Okay.
excellent. Excellent.
You self-publishing? You have it coming through a publisher?
I am doing a hybrid publishing through Total Publishing and Media with Peter Biatich,
Okay.
and
Okay.
right here in Tulsa, and he's done a great job.
Excellent. Title? Do you have a title for the book?
I do. It's called Lady Jane: The Beginning.
Hmm.
And do you have a cover?
I don't.
Or is the cover coming soon?
The cover is coming soon. I do have a kind of a fill-in cover that is on our website, which is mkdavenport.com. If
Which
you go
we will be sure to include at the end of our podcast. That'll be
there you
fine.
go.
Perfect.
Just a
Perfect.
plug.
Hey, that's what we're here for. That's what we're here for.
But this will be the first book in a series.
Excellent. And you're writing those with your wife?
Yes, we write together, and we still love each other, and that's amazing.
Has it ended in a couple arguments on the way the book was going, or are you guys pretty much on the same page?
There are some times that we have gotten
Uh-huh.
a little testy with each other,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
but it's I write it, and I write the rough draft, and in my mind, everything is perfectly clear. Who should have any problem visualizing everything that I've written down? And so occasionally we have to get out dice and little markers and so on, and place people where they are in the room and so on to
Mhm.
make this make sense. And because she's a very visual person, and she has to be able to see it. And I was apparently in this one scene where the stable hand was rescuing the noble lady. He was shooting, and she was looking in one direction, and he was coming from the other direction. And so I had to fix it.
Of course you did, because she said so.
But
Now after OWFI, so the book will be out before OWFI.
correct.
Good. And you'll have copies there. And then after OWFI this year, you'll still be running the Tulsa Night Riders Conference.
Right.
When is that this year?
October 17th.
October 17th.
I should be speaking also at the WriterCon.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
This I do a lot of speaking. I've been speaking by video to some of the mystery writer groups. I'll be speaking on Saturday to the Tornado Alley Conference.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Mhm,
And so I enjoy speaking. Sign me up. Give me a call.
Yeah, when we reached out, you were like right there. Yep. When? That's fine. It's fine. Well, it's just that you have the book intrigued the session intrigued Brian and myself The book is more intriguing. Yes, Brian. So you bought it last year. Have you read it yet?
I have not read it yet. I have paged through it though.
Okay, very good. I'll be picking up my copy at OWFI, as
There you
well
go.
as anybody else who's interested in beefing up their antagonist. Because again, if two guys from two different genres both found some credence and something to put their claws into, it's got validity as far as I'm concerned. Because I think too many people think villain and it's one genre or another genre, but I mean, you've just pointed out historical romance. You've used some of these aspects in that, so it works.
Sure,
You
sure,
know,
it does. We've also seen. I had one guy that was using it when he was constructing a play, movie script. Uh,
really.
yeah, and he used it for one of his characters in there. And I've had some others that used it in romantic suspense, and some that have used it in mysteries. You name it. Basically, you've got to have a villain. Even your bully in school is going to have certain characteristics.
Well,
And
and from what you were talking about, I one of the characters I have in my next novel coming out, King Helgi, I have he's a refugee camp organizer and seems like he wants everything for his camp. But when you start to get to know him, you start finding out this past where he was essentially a king killer and an assassin.
hmm,
And he all that information stays in the underbelly until people start kind of figuring him out, and he has a master ability for disguises and things like that. But he ran away from that life because he was close to getting caught, completely moved to another area of the country, and is trying to help out people that were in similar cases like him. Maybe not assassins, but coming from other countries to try to settle.
and there's another element there that you could see a new protagonist that used to be uh, deeply involved in the criminal world, and now there's so much shame and guilt that he's trying to make up for his past life.
Mhm.
Got it. Got it.
Uh,
Well, I
Great
mean,
character.
in my next book, it's a search for a Nazi war criminal in Kansas post World War II. And of the five suspects, none of them come across as the, tall and blonde and blue eyed and with a mustache or anything like that. And it just makes you wonder what kind of a person is capable of being a Nazi war criminal. And again, it goes to that element of you're taking away the cartoon aspect, you're taking away the archetype, and you're turning these villains, even though it's echoes of the criminal mind, you're turning these villains into humans with different motivations. And I think that's the fascinating part.
Oh, absolutely. And it makes sense. I mean, all of us have a little bit, all of us could be a villain if we wanted to, and all of us could be anything but a villain. I mean, it's all a matter of choices.
Yeah,
I choose to be a good guy. I think that works out best for me.
I like being a bad guy occasionally.
That's why it works out this way. Yeah. What else is on your plate, Merle? What else you want to let us know about? Because I mean, we want people to come to OWFI. We want people to attend your sessions as long as this is in conflict with ours.
Hmm.
Yeah, how about this? How about this? In general, why should any writer come down and attend OWFI this year?
OWFI is probably one of the better conferences that I have ever been to anywhere. And we're looking at a venue that you can hear from some really amazing people that are just experts in their craft, and people that know their craft so much. Uh, and the other element of that is there's enough people attending that you can really do some excellent networking with other authors,
That's for
and
sure.
really
That's for
get
sure.
connected with other authors and kind of pick their brain and what it is that they're interested in. I can remember the very first time when my wife and I were just learning the ropes of writing. We took notes furiously, and I must have had a whole book worth of notes from there. But one of the fun parts of it is that it's a fun uh, venue to go to. People have fun.
Mhm.
You don't run into the elitist personality. You run into very open
Hmm.
authors who really want to talk with each other and really want to learn from each other. I have yet to find anybody that is feels so self-important that I'm beneath them. I've never seen that ever,
Yeah.
and it's just an excellent organization, and they have done a wonderful job. And of course, as long as I keep winning in the contests, it's even better.
And HB and I have talked before that we go down there and it's just kind of like almost you feel energized and you
Yeah,
feel recharged on your writing, even though, because I mean, so much of our time is spent alone and writing on a computer, but then suddenly we're going to a conference full of other writers, different genres.
Well, and there's the giddiness in driving down and talking about all the people that you're going to go to, which session, blah blah blah.
Mhm.
And then you go, everybody, and Merle, I think you hit it on it. They do their best to engage people and welcome people in. They have sessions early on Thursday, like a here's how it's going to be type of thing if you've never been here before. And then if you've gotten a good weekend out of it, you have the giddiness driving home or going home, like I can't wait and I'm ready. I think that is necessary. Our batteries do get drained by everything, so it's important to get recharged.
So what are you
recharged and
looking
re-inspired.
exactly? What are you looking for Tulsa this year for their conference?
Our conference is going to be pretty awesome. Our theme is going to be capturing the imagination.
Okay.
And we're working with the Center for Poets and Writers through OSU. We've made some real connections with them. Our speaker is going to be Bob Signs,
You mentioned that,
uh,
yes.
and he's got 21 movie scripts that have been
Wow.
made into movies.
Yeah.
Been an actor. He's produced. I think he's in the middle of producing his sixth movie.
Sheesh.
And so he's going to be speaking with us. He and I have gotten to be good friends, and he's coming out from Nashville to talk to us.
Cool.
Excellent.
And so that's going to be awesome. And we're going to have so many wonderful speakers there. It's just phenomenal. And of course, we're going to have your ability to pitch your book to an actual publisher and see if they will pick you up. That pitching is
Yeah.
where else do you get a chance uh, to do something like that other than a conference? I wrote when I first started writing. I have a uh, uh, drawer full of about 600 rejection letters from queries that I sent in.
Yep.
And the very first time I was able to talk to
Uh-huh.
a publisher, they picked me up.
Bingo.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so it
Face.
makes a huge difference. I mean, you can talk to them face to face. You can't put everything in a query letter and either it sounds dry or it sounds long-winded or it sounds uh you sound shorted and you short your book in some way. It's
Yeah.
it's hard to get the attention through a letter.
And there is
But
an amazing ability to just pitch verbatim, actually talk to people about your books.
Yeah.
yeah,
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah. And they can hear the excitement in your voice, and they can hear, they can coach you a little bit, and a lot of them do.
Hmm.
They say, well, if you do this and you do this, why don't you come back and talk to me next year?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So that's it. Everybody should come down to OWFI. It's owfi.org, April 30th to May 2nd. Everybody should attend one of Merle's sessions or both. everybody should attend our sessions as well too, but that's we don't want to get too pushy about here. And of course, what do we say, Brian, at the end of every interview? We have one phrase that we always use.
Read a book.
Read a book.
Thank you, Merle.
Thanks, Merle.
Thank you.
We'll see you at OWFI.
Sounds great.
Tiki Man and the Viking Podcast, brought to you by Rumination of Thunder Media. The following intro and outro music was used for this media project. The music Find Them by Alexander Nakrata. Free download from filmmusic.io. License Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 International.